Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. We love to take these kind of current events and really kind of break them down. And today we're looking at some changes happening over at the Social Security Administration.
Hmm.
And, this kind of caught my eye because it really seemed like kind of a small change on the surface. But as we dug into it a little bit,
Yeah.
we saw how it kind of connects to some bigger issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're looking at a CBS News article. It's from March 13th, 2025.
Okay.
And the title is Social Security Administration to Curtail Some Toll-Free Phone Services.
Got it.
So that kind of right away signals, hey, something's changing how people interact with the SSA.
Yeah.
A lot of people rely on that phone number.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes you think about who are they trying to reach with these changes, and maybe more importantly, who are they, maybe not reaching.
Right, and that's something we're going to definitely dig into today
Yeah.
because it's for a lot of people, this is their lifeline to these benefits.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about what these changes are. What's the reasoning behind them, and what are some of the potential implications and unintended consequences that might come from them.
And how that might, relate to the everyday person.
Exactly right. Yeah, and how this might actually affect you. So,
Hmm.
so let's jump right in. Um, the big change here is that the SSA is restricting how you update your direct deposit and banking information.
Okay.
So if you need to make a change to that, you can no longer just call them up on the phone.
Interesting.
You've got two options now. You can either use their online My Social Security service,
Yeah.
which requires two-factor authentication.
Right.
So you got to have your phone, your email, whatever it is you've set up to make sure that it's really you logging in.
For security.
Right. And then the other option is going in person to a local SSA office.
Makes sense.
So not super convenient for everyone.
Especially if you're not, tech savvy or don't have regular internet access,
Yeah. Exactly.
it's a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
Yeah. And the SSA says that they're doing this to combat fraud.
Good.
They claim that 40% of direct deposit fraud
Wow.
involves phone calls to change bank information.
I see. So they're really targeting that specific avenue.
Exactly.
Big fraud.
But it does make you wonder, what is it about that phone call that makes it so susceptible to fraud?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, are there certain types of scams that work better over the phone?
Right. Are they targeting specific demographics?
Right. Are certain people, more vulnerable to this? Are they, older folks? Are they people who, are not as familiar with technology? And, you start to think, well, is this really the most effective way to address this problem? Or are there other more targeted approaches?
Right. And is this just a Band-Aid solution instead of, getting at the root of the issue?
Exactly. And that's where things get even more interesting because initially the Washington Post reported that the SSA was considering ending all phone services, not just for this specific thing, but just like shutting down the whole phone line.
So nobody could call in for anything.
That's what it sounded like. Like you would have to either do everything online or go in person.
That would be a huge change.
Huge, right?
Okay.
I mean, think about how many people rely on that phone number,
Millions and millions.
especially older adults,
Yeah.
people with disabilities, people who might not be as comfortable or have access to the internet.
Absolutely.
That would have been a massive barrier for a lot of folks.
For sure. And, it raises questions about accessibility and equity. Is this really serving everyone equally?
Right. And it seems like there was a lot of pushback against that initial proposal because it did get scaled back to these more limited changes.
Okay, so public pressure might have played a role?
Yeah, it seems like it at least played some role.
Mm-hmm.
But, this whole concern over fraud and these changes to phone services, they seem to be connected to a larger push for cost cutting at the SSA. And that's where things get really interesting because this is where Elon Musk and Dogecoin come in.
This is where it gets a little weird.
Yeah, this is where it takes a turn.
Okay.
So for folks who don't know, Dogecoin or DOGE, it's a type of cryptocurrency.
Right. It started as kind of a joke, but it's gained some traction.
Yeah, it's gotten some attention, and Elon Musk has been a big proponent of it.
A big fan.
And he and his team, they've been advocating for staff cuts at the SSA,
Interesting.
suggesting a reduction of over 12%.
Wow. That's a significant chunk of their workforce.
Yeah, and the Washington Post actually connected these proposed cuts to the initial plan to eliminate phone services altogether.
Okay, so the idea is maybe cut staff, and then you don't need as many phone lines.
Right, exactly. So it all kind of starts to tie together.
So it seems like cost cutting might be a bigger motivating factor than they're letting on.
Yeah, and this also ties into some of the claims that Musk has been making about Social Security. Like he's been saying things like there are 150-year-olds receiving benefits,
Oh, really?
and that it's costing taxpayers millions of dollars.
Huh.
And these claims, they haven't been substantiated,
No evidence to back that up.
but they were even repeated by President Trump during his address to Congress.
Oh, wow. So it's really made its way into the mainstream conversation.
Yeah, and it's a prime example of why critical thinking is so important.
Absolutely.
We can't just take these claims at face value, especially when they're coming from influential figures.
Right. We have to do our own research, look at the data.
Exactly. And, be wary of those biases, both the biases of the people making the claims and our own biases.
Right, because we might be predisposed to believe something if it aligns with our existing worldview.
Exactly.
So it's really important to step back and be critical.
Yeah. And, speaking of credible sources,
Yeah.
we've got to talk about the SSA workers themselves.
Yeah, right? What are they saying about all of this?
Because they've been raising concerns about these changes as well. They're arguing that staff cuts could really impact their ability to serve the nearly 70 million Americans who rely on Social Security.
Right, because if you have fewer people working and you're also limiting the ways that people can contact you.
They're going to create bottlenecks.
Exactly. It's going to lead to longer wait times, both on the phone and in person.
And, potentially less support for people who need help navigating these systems.
Right, because it's not always easy to figure out, especially with all these changes happening.
Right, and it all kind of circles back to those initial changes, right?
Yeah.
Reducing phone access, potentially cutting staff. You can see how all these things kind of create this perfect storm of challenges for people trying to get the benefits they need.
And it seems to contradict Trump's campaign promise to protect Social Security.
Yeah, there's definitely some irony there.
It's a situation that really makes you think about the future of Social Security.
Right.
And whether these changes are truly aligned with its mission.
And that's the big question, right? What does this all mean for you? It seems like the SSA is trying to walk this tightrope between preventing fraud and ensuring accessibility. But are these changes the right approach?
Mm-hmm.
How might they impact you or someone you know?
Right.
I think it's something we all need to be thinking about and paying attention to, because this could have real consequences down the line.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that we need to be having as a society.
Exactly.
How do we balance these competing priorities?
Right. And how do we make sure that everyone has access to the support they need?
Exactly.
So, yeah, definitely something to ponder as we move forward with all of this.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.